Hello. Hello.
Hey.
Oh, I still can't hear anything.
Hi. Hi.
Oh my
No?
God.
Mm. Maybe you want to change the computer?
I can't hear anything. Hold on.
Ah.
Unmute us. There we go.
You still can't hear us.
Yeah, we can hear
we,
you.
we
though,
can hear
Kat.
you, yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
So what's your name?
We're Craig and Anita Reisinger. We're going to be the ones giving a little bit of this information this morning.
Oh, awesome.
We have a company who does this, and so we'll let you know all that we think you'll find helpful.
Oh,
We are old people who help old people move.
that's wonderful.
Right.
Thank you.
How long have you been with KW?
Almost a year, but I still count myself as a new realtor.
I know.
Mhm.
It's hard to not feel like that because I've only been there for a little over a year, maybe a year and a half, I guess.
Mhm.
And I still feel just swarmed with new information, even though I've kind of backed away a little bit, recently. But yeah, there's a lot to
He's been in real estate for like 30, 40 years.
yeah,
So, but he did primarily commercial.
Okay.
So I'm still learning my way into selling homes.
Yeah, it's just
It's,
stressful. I'm like,
It is, I know.
nervous
doubt
every
about
time.
it. No doubt about it.
Yes.
Yes. And I'm going to say yes because Authorine had just asked if we could. Yes. Okay, good.
Yes.
Kelly, okay.
Ooh.
Let me get this. You do that. Hi, sweetheart. You know what? We're on a meeting on computer. Can you come back? Did you come to come?
No, I was just saying that I was starting like a thing where I clean people's yards, and I was wondering if you guys wanted me to rake the yards.
Anytime you'd like to, you go right ahead, okay?
How much do you charge?
Why not?
We might even pay
We
you
might even
two.
give you more than that.
And I still love your haircut. I got one too when I saw you had one.
So, yeah, anytime you want, just go ahead and we'll pay you afterwards, okay?
Sorry, everybody.
Our little neighbor wanted to rake our yard.
Cutest little next door neighbor.
Ew.
Rather have him do it than me. So can anybody hear or how are we doing here?
They're muted.
Okay. So
Maybe we should unmute everybody. Well, can we unmute?
I don't want to think let them do that if they felt like it. Hey, Kat, what's the status here? I think you can probably hear us.
Authorine, okay, I'm going to give you
Yeah.
host privileges, Anita and Craig. Okay.
Okay. So I guess
we all can hear you.
Okay.
Okay,
So
great.
I guess we go ahead and start. We've got host privileges, but okay. So we're just going to be talking.
We'll start, and then if there's a problem, let us know if you can't hear or if there's any sort of problem. Okay.
All righty. Thanks everybody for having us and for joining us today. Who are and we now in terms of is that our company is called Lifetime Transformations.
Sorry.
And
Time out. Is it my internet or somebody or your internet? I kind of hear the cracking. If anybody hear the same thing, let me know.
A cracking.
We don't hear that.
Yeah.
I hear it just a little, but right now it seems fine.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not sure if we were, maybe we'll sit back a little bit. Does that help any? And just let us know, where we, is it making it sound worse or anything. But it's Lifetime Transitions, and Anita started this company back in 2003. And she started off as an estate sale company because she and her sister both had some experience in antiques, and thought that that would be something they could do together. And right out of the gate, their clients would often ask them, okay, this has been great. With the estate sale, can you also help us sell our home? We'll also actually help us to move. And they just kept saying yes. And so this company had, hey, Bo, buddy, come here. Sorry, between dogs and neighbors. The company had grown quickly and doing a lot of things that there really wasn't even an industry for before, because what we do is senior management. And in the industry, we want to call it that's no more than about 15 years old, because the National Association called NASM, NASMM.org, was formed right about the same time that Anita started this. As time on, and they selling more houses and doing more locations, we were able to do, thank goodness, back in 2016. And so now we only do the relocations, and they are turnkey senior relocations for that we've been doing for obviously a lot of years. I just jumped on Anita's bandwagon about 4 or 5 years ago from commercial real estate, and I'm just loving this and working with these folks that we get to spend our time with along. So that's kind of who we are. We do a lot of these moves every year. The only this isn't a system, but pretty much do the home sales for people who ask us to do the initial contact relocation service that we have, and we do work, for people, who are dreading the move or who are digging their heels in to listing their house because they know it's going to be so hard to downsize. They've never downsized before. They need help. It's an emotional thing. That is what we do. And so just wanted to make sure that y'all knew that. So that's generally who we are. And I'm going to let Anita kind of pick up here and tell you a little bit more.
And one thing I'll add is we have a staff of 12, so it's not like Craig and I are out there doing all this by ourselves. Our position in this is that we do help with some of them, but we're more in the overseeing and scheduling and that sort of thing, and those kinds of roles. There are really several reasons why seniors are typically wanting to move on a one-floor living space, master on the main. They don't want to do stairs anymore. They typically want it to be smaller than the house that they currently have. They want lower maintenance. They want it to be less expensive generally because they're tired and they're not getting that stay. They want to be problems to fix. They want to just be able to live in whatever home they choose without having a lot of maintenance. They usually change locations to their children, to hospital, people their own age that they can have community with. And they, at least our clients, they look for counties that have exemptions like they're rated. Those are some of the main reasons they want to move. They usually want to selling their current home. They want to have no mortgage because that keeps the monthly amounts of money very low. They can count these because generally their income is coming from pensions, IRAs, or Social Security. Our average client at 80 years old, in their 50s and 60s. This is not going to be much applicable to them, but this is a demographic.
People, who are not necessarily or a lot of time we'll have kids, a lot of time we'll work with kids, adults, baby boomers, and they do what we do. And it's a good factor, it's the way to move. So we're going to there. We don't get exceptions, but is that we do so that basically so people in winter on and ready to just instead of having to have thing. So it's not just the old people anymore. And I think over time, it's going to become more common as this kind of a service is possible, obviously, because services. But when people see the benefit of it, it's often worth the money and to let us take those problems off their shoulders. So there you go.
And another thing to think about is a lot of people will put off moves as long as they possibly can. And typically a health issue will spur them on to moving. And those are the most difficult moves we do, is when they have to move. They just tend to have less choices. Things are chaotic. And so if somebody that is thinking about moving and they're trying to put off a real value now because health. Just a good thing to mention to them is that move due to your choices, not your circumstances. You just have more options. I describe to you what move looks like for us. Every time we go in and talk to them and we help them, generally these people decide where they're going to go. So if they're represented by an agent, they've either chosen a 55 plus or a senior community or a senior apartment. Those are the kind of choices that they might make. We go in then and do their floor plan and make sure that they are taking just the things that'll fit in that floor plan, and that they're not taking too much. That's a challenge for seniors. They want to take what's in their house, their whole house, to a smaller house, and that just doesn't work. So if they're committed to keeping things, then a storage unit is going to be something that they need to consider. But we do the floor plan, and they are an integral part of that. They want to take, we fit it into the space, and then once they signed off on that, we choose dates and packing before the move. And then, as Craig said, we try to get them in by dinner time. Now, having said that, we've done some large places that might take 2 to 3 days packing, might 2 days to set up. But on a typical senior move that is somebody going into a smaller 2-bedroom or less space, is so we drag it out. And any staff will go in and help. We don't need, and if things need to be dropped off, our girls will do that. If it's stuff that needs to be picked up by like furniture and things like that, we give them a list of charities that pick up.
We've actually also got a community that a senior community that pays for the floor plan. And the initial meeting is free. It's a free consultation. Go out there for an hour or so. But the floor plan itself.
We cannot hear you. It sounds horrible.
Oh, is it? I don't know what to do.
The same situation.
Maybe get it closer. Is this any better? Can you hear me now? Is this
the sound is
anything?
really terrible?
Gosh, I just don't know.
Let's go to the speaker, and do you think we need to turn
I
that?
don't think so. Because we did the sound test before we got on. And Harold says we read.
Yeah, we can hear. It's like I would call it an alien voice because I couldn't hear a lot. And then it would be good for like a good second, and then it went out again.
Okay.
Turn off the internet and lock it back on might help.
I don't know.
The internet, are you on the 5G one?
Yeah. I mean, we've got a, let's see. It didn't sound like a dog barking, did it? Okay.
Now when you talk, it's okay.
I wonder if
But
it's
once you
on
get into the topic, it would just cannot hear.
Sorry. We've done some Zooms before, and I'm sorry, but we've never had a problem with the sound.
I wonder if it's because we're sharing the hosting, or we've got the hosting down.
I don't know. I guess it's still bad, even though if I get up here close, is it still bad when I'm up here closer to the computer?
It's not. It just like time to time, like right now when you are talking, it's okay. And then once you keep talking, it would just like I don't know how to say it, like blah 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 blah. Like I couldn't hear.
No.
Let's try my computer.
Let's try a different computer here. Hang on just a second.
Join with audio.
I want to turn video on too. We're trying to get on with Anita's laptop.
You need to turn yours off.
Yeah.
Then maybe mute the one that Craig you're on. Otherwise, you have an echo.
Okay,
Yeah, let me get
we're
rid of
turning
this.
off his. Is this any better?
Yes, it's getting better, but you keep
This
talking.
is a different computer.
Okay, now it sounds better.
Okay, so we just changed computers. Maybe my microphone is better.
Anita, you have to unmute yourself because there you go.
Is this any better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, this is a different computer, so I think that might be, for whatever reason, what we'll try.
Okay, I'm closing out of mine.
Okay.
Now it sounds better.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's see. I don't know. Okay, it says I'm the host now. I'm trying to figure out how to get the video back on. But the video is not important if you can just hear us. I'll let Craig do that, and I'll just kind of recap what I said real quick. You know, the reason seniors move, and if you work with a lot of seniors, it's home type. They want something small on one level with few problems. They're usually looking for a 55 plus, a senior community, or they're looking for a senior apartment. Senior apartments are like, there are two kinds. There's tax subsidized and non-tax subsidized. And this is good for you guys to know, because if somebody's looking for a senior apartment and they have not very much income, but they have equity in their home, the way the taxes are looked at, they count the home very differently than they do income. So they may qualify for these tax subsidized housing, which are very nice apartments. Because they look at equity in home, they only count a small percentage of that. They're really looking at Social Security, any kinds of income. So keep those in mind. Communities that offer that sort of thing, Walton communities, keep those in mind. They have both regular senior apartments and tax subsidized. And they're, you know, so those are the kinds of housing that they're going to typically look for. And they're going to want to be near kids. They're going to want to be near doctors, family, all of that sort of thing. So those are reasons that they move. They want to typically pay cash because if they're buying something, because they don't want high monthly payments. They don't work any longer. So Social Security, IRAs, pensions, those are what they're typically living on. They want something that's not as big as what they currently have. If you have clients that are pushing off the move because they want to stay in their home as long as possible, but they have medical issues, you know, it's an encouragement to tell them to move by their choices, not by their circumstances, because when they move after a health issue, those are very hard moves, very stressful. Typically, you have a lot of family involved. Everybody has a different opinion, and those can be some of the hardest moves. So if they have less choices at that point. So if you can encourage them to let their choices be the determining factor and not their circumstances, you'll be helping them a lot.
Is the sound okay, everybody?
See,
Yeah, much better now. Thank you.
Better, Kat?
Okay.
Thank
much
you.
better.
Okay, so let's say they're not going to buy something and they're not going to move into a senior apartment, like we've mentioned, the tax subsidized and the non-tax subsidized, which are the cheaper options. Let's say they want to be in a senior community for the activities, some of their meals prepared for them. There are several different kinds of those. Independent living is probably, they get the least amount of services, and those generally cost anywhere from, depending on the size of their units, anywhere from $3,000 a month to $6,000 a month. And I know that sounds extremely high, and it is. But they're getting usually 2 meals a day, housekeeping, activities, and generally they choose this option because they still are pretty self-sufficient, but they want some of the other services that they no longer feel like they want to provide for themselves. All kinds of places out there that offer independent living. That's really your first entry into senior communities. The next would be assisted living. This is where they need help with daily activities. Let's say they have trouble with medication management, they have trouble with showering, things like that. That's the next step up. The prices go up with that. They typically start around $4,000 a month. The next one would be memory care. Again, higher level of care. They're getting help with everything. These apartments are pretty small. They can't really take much. And oftentimes you'll be selling a house for somebody and one person will need to go to memory care, but the other one won't. Or the other one will need assisted and the other one won't. So there are communities out there that offer all different levels of care so that the couple can be in the same place, if not in the same room. There are some communities, and I'll just mention one, Merrill Gardens is one, that they offer the assisted living portion into an existing independent living space. So there are not many of those out there that do that. They usually require you be in assisted living wing, memory care wing, but there are a few that will offer it in the independent living sections. And then the last one is a CCRC. There's probably only 4 in the metro Atlanta area. There's Presbyterian Village, Lanier Village Estates, Park Springs, and St. George. Now we work a lot with St. George, but they go everywhere from independent living all the way up to skilled nursing. And you cannot enter the assisted living or the skilled nursing unless you've been into the independent and assisted living. The disadvantage to CCRCs is typically that you have to buy in, meaning the apartments, and you don't own anything, which is hard for people to understand, but you buy into the right to live in these places, and they start in the 300,000s and go up from there. Some of them can be as high as $600,000 for a 3-bedroom apartment in one of these communities. So it's not for everybody. And that's why I mention everything along the range from senior apartments all the way up through CCRCs, because there's quite a range. So you can see when you're helping somebody try to figure this out, it's probably not something that most agents want to deal with because, you know, you really need to know your client's needs, and you really need to know what the communities offer, and they're all different. So there are companies that are called placement companies. And Craig will get into that a little bit more when he talks about resources, but their sole objective is to match the community with the resident to suit their needs.
It's like a buyer's rep for older people moving into senior communities.
And it doesn't cost anything for the client to use that, because the communities pay, these placement companies have contracts with the communities, and they're paid when the resident moves in. So, and Craig will get in a little bit more, and we can give you a list of resources through Authorine at the end of this that she can just pass out to you. There'll be some, you know, of course you have your resources like handyman and things like that. You're going to need all of the resources you currently have, but these are very senior specific resources that we've used. There are many others out there. You don't certainly have to use this list, but it'd be a place to get started.
Pick it up.
It can be very time consuming as an agent to try to go through these communities and tour them with their clients. And for me, we don't even do this, even though we feel like we know the communities pretty well. We just don't feel like we know current rates, what are the current incentives, what's the word on the street about their foods. And that's what these placement people know. So even though we're in the industry, we really don't help people find these senior communities.
They've been good people to relate with, because what they do fits so well into what we do. They find the place for them, and then to continue that service going forward, to make the move easier for them, they'll refer them over to us, and so it becomes kind of an overall package for making the relocation easier for these folks.
Okay, so Craig, you want to do resources?
Yeah. The thing is also, if you're tempted to do the placement part because you're working with them on as a buyer's rep, just be cautious about it, because like Anita says, you do have to know some specifics that you typically wouldn't have to know if you were just a buyer's rep for homes.
Or a listing agent. Either way, you just want to be careful of suggesting a place, because they will, like anything else, hold you responsible for it. And it's so much and really, they don't pay at these senior communities. They give realtors maybe $400 or $500 to have somebody move in.
It's not worth it.
It's really just not worth it in order to perhaps not lead your client in the right way. So lots of placement companies, and you can feel good once you start working with one that they're going to be taken care of well.
Yeah, just to give you an idea, if you're still having just a place for mom, I think everybody's heard of that, because Joan London is their representative. You see them advertise, they're a national company, that sort of thing. There are plenty of disadvantages, frankly. I mean, I know they help lots of people, but there are disadvantages to not using a locally owned placement company. So there are plenty to choose from.
A word about that. If they go online and they're looking at a place for mom and they sign the terms of service,
Tell them to be careful.
No matter who takes them to a place, even if they get a placement person locally, what a place for mom does is send out these broad lists as referrals, and they will be the ones getting paid, but they don't necessarily give the services to your clients. So always warn your clients not to go on and click those terms of service for a place for mom until they've really determined that they just want to be part of a list that goes to senior communities as referrals. If they really want somebody to tour them, take them, tell them all the things about it, then they want a placement person. Again, it's not going to cost them anything. It's just who gets paid and what kind of service do they get for that money. So that's just a word on that.
All righty. Resources. I know that that all of us have our own handful of resources that we like to use. And like Anita mentioned earlier, you're going to want to keep those, of course. Whether it's handymen, home inspectors, appraisers, all that sort of thing, those relationships obviously will still be valuable to you. But in the senior world, and this is part of what I've learned by just running around the senior world with networking meetings and that sort of thing, is you would be amazed at all of the different senior specific services there are. I mean, almost anything that you can think of, there are people that do those services specifically for seniors, and you'll want to have some of those in mind as you go forward, because you'll have some of these, some of your older, clients, 80 years old, whatever, ask you about some of these things. Some of them that you'll be, wanting to know something about and to have some contacts for are home care companies and home health care companies. The differences are there that home care companies are the folks that go in and help them with their daily activities, or some of the, the easy things to help people with, whether it's bathing, meals, or even just reading them a book, that sort of thing. That comes under the home care category. The home health care category comes in where you've got some nurses involved, or nurse practitioners, things like that, to where there are more health related issues involved. And a lot of people like to stay at home as long as they can, aging in place, so to speak. And so they're going to want to stay at home as long as possible. But you walk that fine line between staying at home as long as possible versus, like Anita was saying, you want to be able, you don't want to have to be pushed into moving. Like when you realize that the home care or the home health care companies are not providing enough service of what you need based on the condition that you've gotten to, then you're forced into the move. You want to move before you have to, like she said.
And really the cost of home care is exorbitant when you add, especially when they get to having 24-hour day care. It's almost way cheaper to go into a senior community than to pay for that.
Yeah, depending on which senior community, of course.
Yeah.
Estate sale companies. I know you've probably run into this, even with your regular age clients. Those are people that it's hard, and we don't even as much about it as as we know. And I use that term loosely. We, as Anita knows, since having done the estate sales for such a long time, there are people that you could refer folks to, but the thing is, they're going to hold you responsible for it. Well, you told me to call such and such estate sale company. If you give them a list, it's probably a little bit of a safer bet for you, and then they can determine who's going to work best for them and their personality and the services that they have. But we can help, like the way that we do is we help our clients by just letting them know to go to estatesales.net, not estatesales.com, but .net. That's where most of the estate sale companies hang out, and they post all of their sales and that sort of thing. And you can see who's been in business for how long, who's been the busiest, what kind of services they offer. Do they take credit cards, that sort of thing. So we'll tell them to go to that site. We'll give them a list of questions to help them sift their way through the right people. And then, in our case, we just help schedule the estate sale in its right place within their timeline of moving from point A to point B.
Can I just say one thing about estate sales? It's an unregulated industry. So I would say make sure your clients have contracts and that they've reviewed those contracts and that they know who pays for what, like credit card fees, house setup, be prior to the estate sale. There's all kinds of ways to do that job. And I've heard some horror stories out there. So make sure that there's a contract and that they agree to everything on that. Just want to make mention of that.
Okay. Let's see. Durable medical equipment, or DME, as it's sometimes referred to. If you're catching these people, your clients, on the front end of their finally getting to a place and saying, oh my gosh, we know we got to move, but we just don't know where to go from here. That might involve a lot of services like this. They might need a lift, or not a lift chair, because they won't at that point, but whether it's wheelchairs or hospital beds,
Relators, anything like that that makes staying at home a little easier until they have the chance to move.
To go, yeah. Home adaptations, that would be to make aging in place, much easier, obviously, but at the same time, if they wanted to make it available to the widest market, and you wanted to adapt it so that it's compliant with universal design, then you're going to want to talk to people in the home adaptations world. Placement companies, Anita has already mentioned them. Financial advisors, there are specific needs that come up at these older ages, and it's good to have financial advisors that have experience in the retirement years, or particularly, for example, for veterans. Veterans have a lot of things going on, a lot of resources, but also credit coming their way as veterans, for example, that they might not know about. But if you've got good financial advisors and people who actually have some specific knowledge of veterans, they can really help them get what's coming to them for the service they've given to our country.
Can I mention one thing?
Mm-hmm.
And that's called aid and assist. And even wives of veterans who've passed away have benefits, and many of those people don't know about that, and those can help pay for assisted living and those kinds of things. So that's an important resource to have when they're looking at going into a senior community, either a wife of a veteran or a veteran themselves, and it can be a couple $1,000s a month. So and they only get it if they're going into one of these senior places. So keep that in mind when you're helping your folks.
Junk haulers. I mean, it's not unusual to have people ask for junk haulers, but they're, are the same kind of difference in services. It's good to find one that you like, one that is does a good job and is respectful and professional with the people that he's working with. Elder law, like we were talking about the financial aspects of things. Elder law is just a different world in its own, and there are things that where they need to speak specifically with people who provide that, instead of maybe, they might have had a business attorney or a personal attorney for a long time, but if those attorneys don't have that elder law experience as they get into these older years, it's something that you might want to suggest that they look into. And then charities that do home pickup. I mean, you got, likely when they're downsizing, particularly, obviously they've got stuff left over. Some of it they're going to give to their kids. Others, they're going to give it to charities. Others are, obviously you got the junk haulers that we mentioned, and then have somebody who also is good with home cleaning, because if they've lived in there for 30 or 40 years, it's going to need a cleaning before you sell a house. And so we're going to finish most of this off with some challenges that you'll likely face, with some of your older folks, and then talk about what happens after the move and the sale takes place.
And then it will answer any questions you guys have.
Yeah.
Challenges working with seniors, you guys kind of know it. They're usually, by the time they've done this, they've dreaded it, they've postponed it, and they don't want to do it. They don't want to leave the family home where they have all the memories attached to it. So it can be sort of bittersweet. They want to move on, but yet they don't want to leave. And that gets really hard. Memory deficits. I don't know if you run into people that have those, and it's a slippery slope. I just had one who called me not long ago, wanted me to sell her house, get her moved, buy another house. But upon talking to her, I realized she didn't have the capacity to actually sign contracts. So I suggested to her, and I put her in contact with what we talked about, a placement person, and told her to please look into that as an option before making a decision to buy another place. She had, I would say, mid-range in memory deficits. And that's what she ended up doing, because really another home would not have been a suitable. Yes, wouldn't have made that commission, but still it was really the best option for her. And think about that when you're dealing with somebody that you know has memory deficits. Get a family member involved. They can get financial power of attorney. They can get real estate power of attorney. And it will be easier to work through them if you can. There is a little bit of liability there working with people and having them sign things that that their memory is not good. So just keep that just in the back of your mind and try to help them find somebody that can represent them in dealing with real estate or moving. Because I mean, even on our moves, if we feel like they can't sign a contract or they can't make these decisions, we try to get people involved from the family. And there are some times where there's not that. And then they're maybe needing an administrator from the court system to help them do that. So just kind of keep those things in mind. Also, they're not tech savvy. When you get much over 75 into the 80s, generally they can do email, but, and this isn't true of everybody, but for a lot of these folks, they're not going to be able to use DocuSign and things like that. They're going to want people in front of them explaining things. And, you know, it's like, you just have to be patient because they don't want to admit that they don't understand, but you know, asking leading questions. Did you understand this? Have them repeating back to you so that you know that they get what you're talking about. They need lots of hand holding is the way I would best describe that. And if you're going to work with family members, we've learned this the hard way. Try to have them pick one representative. They might have 3 kids, but I'm going to tell you, they all 3 have different ideas. So have them choose one person that you work through if you have to, because too many cooks in the kitchen are not really a good thing. So
the good news is that they might have help from the family. And the bad news is that they might have help from the family.
So, you know,
depending on the family.
So this is kind of a synopsis. The move part is really pretty straightforward. Floor plan, packing, unpacking, and home setup. You know, we do, when we are finished with what we do, their house is move-in ready, meaning we've hung the pictures, we've made the beds, everything's put away in the kitchen and the bathrooms. They come in and it's move-in ready. So the move part is fairly straightforward, but it's all these other things that go along with the move that you want to make sure, you know, that you can provide assistance with resources like Craig has said, and to try to give them a general picture of the process. Many movers don't necessarily work with seniors very much. So they do a move for a senior typically like they would do any other move. We kind of do it a little differently in the sense that we know what things need to be in that house first so that we can get things in a position that they can begin living there quickly. So just something to keep in mind. And Craig, anything to wrap up?
Yeah, I just want to, point out, the fact that, as we've talked about the challenges to working with these folks and, some of the extra work that you might be doing for them because they are elderly, basically, it's like, it is rewarding. It's like helping your grandparents for a living. And I know we have really enjoyed it. And the thing is, you end up with, when you start working with them, they have likely built up a lot of anxiety or dread or not knowing what to do. And so what we look at, how we look at what we do is that, to kind of reverse that saying, we kind of turn that mountain into a molehill. And so that by the time you're finished with that process of working with them, our goal, and your goal could be within what you do from a real estate standpoint, is to get them on the other end of that and say, that was great. That was not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be because of what you did for me and the things that you knew about the resources that would be helpful to me. Is a lot of hero room left for you at the end of the process and working with them. And so that by the time that that they, get to the end of the process. When they started the process, they had a better life in mind for whatever reason it was. Any of the reasons that Anita talked about in the beginning here is whether they wanted to be in a smaller place because it was less expensive, or because it was, master on the main, or whatever it was that motivated them to move. They're now in their new home, free to live their new, better life, and you had a lot to do with that. And so despite the challenges, it is really rewarding. And 99% of these folks are just grateful as they can be, and good folks.
And here's a few statistics for, if you're deciding, do I want to work with seniors in their 70s and 80s? About 15 million seniors, there'll be 15 million seniors between 2020 and 2030. 14% of those will buy in the 55 plus. There's 10,000 baby boomers that will celebrate their 60th birthday every day for the next 16 years. 90 plus nearly tripled over the last 3 decades and will quadruple over the next 4 because people are living longer. These are just some things that as you move forward, you can see the seniors are going to need your help. And as one of the reasons that we chose to work with seniors, and we find it rewarding. And so now we'll open it up to any questions you have for us.
$5.
Okay. All right.
Hi, my name is Marlene Quiroz. So I have a client that is 74. So she lives in Indian Hills, and she called me. She has 2 sons, but only one is here. But it seems that the sons, they have the relationship, but they don't want to be involved in the decisions. And she seems, her mind is still good and everything. So she has this house, and she called me because she wants to know what to do. Mm-hmm. So the house needs repairs. She has equity, of course, in the house. But it's very confusing because she wants to have the place where she's going ready before she puts the house in the market. So it's like she doesn't know where to start. And I don't know where the advice would be the best to mm-hmm. invest and fix that house to sell it better, or just to sell it the way it is and find her the right place. I don't know. So what would be the first step in those cases?
Okay, well, a lot of it depends on their financial position. Like if she's going to be buying another place, does she have to sell her place first in order to buy that other place? If she doesn't, if she's moving into a senior apartment or a senior community, what I would suggest is go ahead and get her moved. Go ahead and empty that space. A lot of times seniors, and this isn't true for everybody, but a lot of times seniors who've lived in a place for a long time, their furnishings are not going to help sell that place. So you might be better off to go ahead and get them moved. And if there's some nice things left, you could use those. That's what I do. I use what's left over that won't fit in their next space and try to stage the rooms closest to the front door. So if that's a living room, try to kind of rework those things to stage those areas. And then once you get a contract, go ahead and get rid of those things. But the very first step is finance. Can she pay to go ahead and move and buy what she's going to live in or rent first? That is the easiest way on your seniors. Get them moved, deal with everything else after they're out of there. They don't typically like showings as a rule. And I'm sorry about the dog. The little boy next door keeps but it would be to her advantage to move first and not to stay when you're trying to sell that house. And I hope that answers your question, but it really depends on her financial situation. A lot of seniors need that equity out of their house before they can move forward. And then what you're doing is, if they've got to stay in that house, you've got to help them decide what they're going to keep, or have somebody help them decide what they're going to keep, what they're going to get rid of, start doing that, and then stage it while they're living there with what they have. Because I will tell you, they're not going to pay, generally speaking, for bringing other furniture in. So I would just have it ideally have her moved, have it cleaned, have any repairs done, then put it on the market would be the best way. It just really depends on her situation.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Okay.
My name is Courtney King. I was just wondering, what would you say would be a good way to market to this demographic?
Typically, I would say this, get your resources all in line and make that be, I can help you with whatever you need. You know, be it this, be that, and, you know, go to where seniors are. Seniors, typically, they'll always go to any senior specific seminars that are out there, partner with a financial planner that works with seniors. That kind of thing. Go to senior centers and see if you can give they will pass out your information, but what you'll find that happens anytime you give a talk where seniors are present, they'll come up to you and ask you for your information. But you need to portray yourself as knowing a lot about the senior industry and having resources that will help them specifically. Seniors are one of the few people that do read print mail that come to their houses. So that's another option for you. I would say other demographics, that's not so much the case, but seniors do typically read things that come in the mail to them. They will at least open it, especially in that demographic. So those are things, we go to a lot of networking things with other senior
Service providers.
Yes, other providers, and that's a good way. Partner with people like home care companies, people who offer other things to seniors, become a resource for them. That's a good way to do it.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Has the sound been okay?
Yes, it's much better. I have another question.
Okay.
So at the beginning, you were talking about, you know, that they look for counties where there is exemptions for their taxes and all that stuff.
Right.
So what are the counties that you recommend the most in this area?
Well, Cobb and Cherokee are really good because you don't pay any of the school tax. And that's where the bulk of the real estate taxes come from. Most other counties surrounding, they look at income. Now Fulton, Paulding, those counties and other surrounding, even North Georgia counties, a lot of them will look at income, but a lot of them also give veterans discounts and other things like that. If you go on the county website you're interested in, they will have a section under exemptions. And you can find out for each individual county what those exemptions are and how they're calculated. So whether they offer veteran discounts, whether they offer senior discounts, how those senior discounts are calculated. There's also disability discounts on taxes at different ones. So it really depends on which ones, but Cobb and Cherokee, at least at this point in time, are known as being really, you just have to turn, is it 62? I think I should know that because I think it's 62 and you don't pay the school tax. That's why a lot of people move into Cobb and Cherokee counties for those reasons. And that, you know, on a typical house, that can save you $4,000 a year, which on a senior's budget, that matters.
More than that.
Yeah, 5,000 maybe?
I mean, because when I know you probably thought I was much younger than this, but when I turned 62, I'm kidding about the whole thing. Our taxes went from, what were they at the time? Maybe 3,500 or so a year.
They were in the fours.
Yeah. Okay. And down to,
yeah.
So yeah, Anita's right. It could be, $3,000 or $4,000 a year, they say.
Yeah. It just depends on how much their house is worth, what they're paying in school taxes, because that's really what they're saving in those two counties. Like I said, the other one's prorated for the most part.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? And don't forget the tax subsidized things, guys, because if somebody wants an apartment, a senior apartment, they might have equity in their house, but they won't have a lot of residual income from Social Security and things like that. And there is an exact amount they can make no more than. And but if they qualify in that and they look at house equity differently, they don't add that dollar for dollar. Sometimes people can qualify for those things, and they might just, like for a senior, a very nice Walton senior community might only pay $700 a month. And so, I mean, it is well worth looking into if you have anybody that you think might qualify for that. And it's real easy. Like Walton Communities is one that has both senior apartments and tax subsidized ones. You can call and talk to one of their people, and they can tell you pretty quickly whether your person will qualify or not. But it's something to keep in mind. Anybody else have anything? Well, it's been a pleasure. I
Just one
hope.
more question, sorry. I
Oh,
was
sure,
I was
no,
giving the chance to somebody else to ask. So what, there are some seniors that have this reverse mortgage. I met a lady, and I really do not have experience with reverse mortgages, but so what can you tell me about that in this case?
Is she, well, one thing I'm going to ask you, is she buying a place with a reverse mortgage, or is she trying to have a reverse mortgage so that she can stay in her current home?
Well, she's in her current home. She has a reverse, and now she wants to move up north. She wants to sell that house and move up north with her children.
This is something I would talk to a mortgage person about, but there is a product called the Heckham Mortgage out there. I had a client who used it, and they bought a $235,000 house, but they only had, and this may apply to her because she's going to have all this equity out of her house. They only have to put half of the amount of the purchase down, and they will never have another mortgage payment while they live in that house.
And the heck of it is for buying.
It's for buying, yeah.
Not refinancing, but for buying a
buying.
new place.
So in her case, she might sell her house, have all that equity, go up north, find something that she likes. Let's say it's $200,000. She would only have to put about $100,000 down, but would never have another mortgage from that point on. And when the house, she either passed or had to move out, that's when they settle up with the rest of it. So I would say this, talk to a mortgage person, because they have these tables that they look at to see what they think will be the most advantageous to them. But the product is good for anybody over 62 that wants to use it. So it can be very advantageous to somebody who's on the younger end of that spectrum. They can live in that house mortgage free for the rest of their days. Now they still have to pay HOAs and taxes, but they don't have to pay mortgage. And somebody who specializes in those Heckham mortgages is who you want to talk to.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh. Anybody else?
Thank you guys very much, and sorry about the alien voices earlier.
And we will be sending authoring that list. These are just contacts for you. These are going to be placement people, home care people. So it'll get you a head start on having a resource base. You may change the ones we send you. You might work with somebody that you like, but at least you'll have some of these. And a word about charities, many of them will not come into homes and pick things up. So that would be a question I would ask them if you're trying to help your client, because otherwise they have to bring things outside, and that's really hard, and it's all about insurance. So we will send that on to Arthurine, and she can pass that off. And we'll also send those estate sale questions, because I think this will help you with your clients who need those things.
In fact, hey, Marlon, the list that we'll send out will also have a couple of these Heckham mortgage people on it, so you can contact them too.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you very much. It was
You're
very,
welcome.
very helpful, your presentation. Thanks.
Oh, I'm
Thank you.
glad. Thank you so much. And Arthurine, if you need anything else, just let us know.
I'll bet she's saying okay.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Uh-huh. Bye-bye.
So go in here and just end it here.
Mhm.
I'll leave meeting. I'll let her end it. I sign and leave. Okay. Authorize.
I'll sign it.